In this video, I'm building small speaker stands from wood scraps left over from other projects. And I'll also throw together a couple sets of custom cables to go with my new Klipsch RP-600M II bookshelf speakers. I decided to add another set of speakers to complement my studio, but didn't want to spend any more money. I head into the garage and sift through all of the pieces of wood that are laying around. I tend to keep pieces that I hope can be used for something someday. Luckily, I have enough to make something useful with no need to buy anything else. Looking through my stash, I have some nice shelving board pieces left over from the studio shelves that were assembled last year. These 2-inch diameter dowels are scraps from the twin Odin subwoofers I built way back in 2020. I don't even know where or how I got these 1x3 boards, but I'm sure they will be very useful. Looking over the rest of the wood, I can see there is more than I will need. Having the basic idea of what I have to work with, I lay out the plans in AutoCAD so I can have something to work from when it's time to cut and assemble. Being Mr. Fancy Pants, I dropped the design into SketchUp to get a better visualization of the final product. I pull out my Harbor Freight miter saw, which is not very good because I can never make it cut perfectly, but it gets me through. Starting with the dowels, I line them up, mark them with the cut line, and get on with it. The purpose for these speaker stands was to do something quick and easy on a Saturday afternoon with a little mess. Had I enough dowels, I would have just used one on each corner, which in my opinion would have looked nicer and been more uniform looking. Moving on to the rest of the parts, I cut all the scraps to the measurements in my drawing. With all the parts cut, I clean up the area and get assembling. For this job, I'll be using my compressed air-powered brad nailer. I was going to use screws, but the small size of the stands didn't warrant anything more than common wood glue and nails. Plus, that makes assembly faster and easier. To start, I glue and nail the back support for the stands. Next, I'll glue and nail the top to the back support, then attach the front pillars, then the bottom panel, and one stand will be done. My plan was to keep it rustic and not to invest a lot of time in making them pretty, but I do think they could use some paint. I had a few cans of black Rust-Oleum Paint Plus Primer sitting in my basement for a few years, so I decided to take my chance and spray the stands. Unfortunately, it's about 18 degrees Fahrenheit in my garage right now, and as they used to say in the old country, it's colder than a witch's tit right now. Ideally, you would never spray paint in these conditions, but I really don't care. After letting the stands dry in my basement overnight, I am perfectly pleased with the results and bring them into the studio. The glossy finish of the Rust-Oleum will make it easier to dust and helps the black pop more. Before I place the stands, I want to put some kind of foam dampening on the bottoms. I've had these adhesive rubber pads for something like 5 years or more and can't remember why. I'll cut them into pieces and use them as feet for the stands. I factor them into the measurements of the design, as you can see here in the drawing. With the rubber feet installed, I can get the stands put in place. The stands are to be placed behind the monitor on the left, and I needed it to be a certain height to clear the speaker. The right stand will be in view while this side of my work area remains clear. For those with OCD, this area may be too lopsided, but this room is still a work in progress. Before I can mount the speakers, I need to knock out a few sets of speaker cables. I got this great spool of pure oxygen-free stranded copper off Amazon. With these gold-plated 90-degree deadbolt ends to go with some straight banana plugs that I had left over from the theater build in 2019. I got these Y-splitter tubes for free, so I'll take my chances on them. Here's a leftover spool of braided sleeving, again from the 2019 theater build. Links to this stuff will be in the description. To start, I cut a couple runs of 13-foot wire. Unwind the braided sleeving and start feeding the wire in. It takes an eternity as I can only shimmy about an inch at a time and then adjust the buildup as I go. After a short while, the first cable is braided and I can start putting the ends on. Here I guesstimate the distances of the sleeving and how much I need to trim. These ends require stranded copper so you can bend it down over the teeth of the right piece, then twist and lock in with the left piece. I have a bin of random heat shrink tubing from years of projects, so it's good to have an emergency supply on hand. I wasn't entirely satisfied with the cables I just made, and decided to make a second pair. I still need them for the ceiling speakers in the studio, and I won't be wasting the ones I just made. This set has new heat shrink and Y-splitters, along with new gold-plated compression banana plugs. I made these off camera and I'm more satisfied with how these turned out. Marvel at them. Now it's time to hook up the Klipsch RP-600M II. Does the M stand for Mark II? I don't know. This speaker has dual input terminals for bi-amping. There's also an updated port for improved bass. Even though these MDF boxes have a vinyl wood grain finish, they do look mighty nice. Along the front, there is a satin finished baffle that houses a silicone composite hybrid Tractrix horn with a linear suspension titanium diaphragm tweeter, and of course, the 6.5-inch cone woofer. But one simply does not place a speaker on a stand without a proper isolation pad. Enter the 3-layer speaker isolation pad to provide a little height and a little more isolation for improved bass. But what they really do is prevent vibrations from rocking my work surface. On the bottom, there is a thin layer of mass-loaded vinyl, topped with polyester fiberboard, and on top of that is polyurethane foam, with the additional piece of foam to help angle the speaker down a bit. The rough thickness is around 2 inches. That too is factored into the original design. These simply get placed on top of each stand before the speakers go on. The fun part is plugging in my cables and placing both the speakers. I have this old, crusty but reliable Denon AVR 991 powering these Klipsch and 2 Yamaha in-ceiling speakers. The stands and the speakers are complete and ready to rock out. But first, I need to fill this void with something. Ah, that's better. Everything sounds fantastic, so this was a success. Thanks for watching.